And thank you so much for joining on a Sunday.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So for
Can I put on my video right now or?
Yes, sir, you can, sir.
Start. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Just give me a minute.
I'm sorry, what's the name of the other panelist who's going to be speaking along with me?
Gaurav sir will be joining, and he'll be basically the theme of the session is fireside chat. So he'll be asking questions to you.
Okay, so it's going to be a conversation only between Gaurav and me, is it? Okay.
So now, can you try now to turn on your camera?
Yes.
Yes. So we will need to wait just a couple of minutes, sir. Once Gaurav sir joins.
But tell me, your scheduled time is 6:40, right?
Yeah, but we have communicated, sir. He'll be joining.
No, he will join early, but how about the audience? The audience will not join, no, before that?
Sir, actually, this is a running session. Audience is already with us.
Huh. So what is currently going on in the session? What program is currently going on?
Okay, so before this, just we finished the session from the entrepreneurship institute DSCC, which is in IIT Bombay. There was a session on entrepreneurship, and before that we had Miss Anar Patel, and she addressed the students.
Understood. And what time did this this whole day starts? What time does it start and what time does it end?
It started around 4:15. It will go until 9.
4:15 to 9. Got it. Okay. Thank you. And today is the second day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And yesterday, what was the timing? Same time, is it?
Almost, yeah, 4:20 to 9.
Got it. Perfect. Okay.
So, sir, before we start, sir, with your permission, can I just briefly give your introduction to the audience?
Yes, please. You should, yeah. Are you going to mention the fact that I now run a foundation, or you will not mention that?
Sir, yes, I'll mention the fact that you run NGO on transformation in India.
Got it. And also, I focus a lot on digital health, which includes, the effort that we are doing in IIT Bombay with the Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay. You are aware of that?
Sir, no, actually, I'm not aware of that, sir. I have an introduction which I made for you, sir. If you allow me, I'll give your introduction, and if I miss something.
No. But there's a new Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay that my foundation has sponsored, no? So you should mention that, right? It'll be very relevant to the IIT Bombay students. So there is the Koita Center for Digital Health. Have you heard of that or not quite? Yeah.
No, sir, I am actually not aware about that.
Your first year, which year student are you? Maharshi?
I am first year student, sir.
First year, yeah. So there's actually a Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay. Can I put it in a chat window?
Sir, it will be helpful to me, sir.
Okay. But the chat window will be seen by everybody or only hosts and panelists? Okay.
Only hosts and panelists will be able to see that, sir.
I just put it there. Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir, I got it, sir.
Okay.
Hi, Rizwan. Gaurav this side. Hi, Marish.
Hi, Gaurav. Hi, how are you doing?
Hello, sir.
I'm good. How are you? Pleasure to connect.
Okay, sir.
There were a bunch of questions. You may have put some questions, or IIT may have given you some questions. I gave them a little bit of feedback, some minor changes in the questions. Have you received that, Gaurav?
I have not. I still have the same list which I had shared 24 hours ago.
1 second, Gaurav. I sent it with Praveen. I don't know if you are connected with Praveen. I can even put them down here if you want to.
Sir, actually, Praveen has received it. He is just sharing it to Gaurav, sir.
Sure.
Can I post it here on the chat window?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's okay. Only panelists can see them.
These are basically the same questions, Gaurav. I've just tweaked them just a little bit. Yeah.
Sure.
So I opened the link which you shared, and have added it to the introduction. So if you allow, we can start with the introduction.
Yeah, I'm ready from my side. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll introduce you, and then I'll introduce Gaurav sir, and then I'll hand over the session to the Gaurav sir.
Yeah, sure.
So our esteemed guest for today is Mr. Rizwan Koita. He is the co-founder of CitiusTech since 2005 and led the company as its CEO for 16 years. CitiusTech is a global leader in healthcare technology with deep expertise in product engineering, data management, analytics, and data science. He has completed his bachelor's in electrical engineering from IIT Bombay, and then he went to complete his master's in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT. He co-founded Transwork, which is an IT service and consulting firm. He then co-founded CitiusTech and led the company for 16 years. He is actively associated with multiple social initiatives and has his own philanthropic venture called Koita Foundation, which supports digital health initiatives and NGO transformation in India. He also helped to open the Koita Center of Digital Health, which is set up at IIT Bombay and is first of its kind in India, focused on driving academic programs, research, and industry collaborations in digital health. It focuses on improving the quality, accessibility, and affordability of healthcare and is one of the world's biggest priorities. Digital health has a profound impact on quality of care and efficiency of healthcare delivery. So, sir, I welcome you on behalf of E-Club IIT Bombay to E-CONCLAVE 2022.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to students of IIT Bombay, and I look forward to the discussion with Gaurav and all of you all today. Thank you very much.
And now Mr. Gaurav Srivastava. He is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur with expertise in tech startups from India and Singapore. He is a serial entrepreneur who has developed, founded, and headed multiple startups. Along with Nirvan Chatterjee and Manisha Singh, he has launched a bioinformatics company, Haystack Analytics, which is focused on creating genomics-based products for improving current diagnostics paradigm. Gaurav sir, thank you for joining us, and now you have the session.
Thank you, Marshi. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be a part of this August Forum, and I think I'm privileged to share the seat with Rizwan sir here. Like all of you in the audience, I'm also a very big fan. We've heard our own bits of small stories about how CitiusTech has done fabulous work in the healthcare ecosystem, healthcare tech. I think this was possibly a domain which got the nomenclature itself from the work that Citius has done across the last 15-16 years of its existence. Rizwan sir, welcome once again. We all are here to learn from your phenomenal experience. I hope the entire audience is going to enjoy the next half an hour or 45 minutes of conversation, and they will go back home slightly richer, slightly more educated, and possibly slightly more motivated to do something interesting in their life as an entrepreneur if they can. Rizwan sir, the first question that comes to me, and I want to open this forum with that first question is you come from an era where possibly startups as a concept was still very, it was possibly the timeline when startups were still being understood, not just in India, even outside of India. .com bubble started and then it went bust, and people were still trying to grapple on how the entire tech industry is going to work in the coming years. In that time and age, what inspired you to get started? What is your, because the theme of this conclave is 0 to 1, I would love to know for the entire audience, what is your 0 to 1 moment in the entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So thank you very much, Gaurav. I appreciate all your kind words, and hopefully this will be a two-way conversation between you and me, and there'll be some insights learning for the audience as well. And like I do with some of these sessions, I'm very cognizant of the fact that the audience in this case happened to be a sort of bright IIT student. So I'll try and keep this conversation as real as I can, and hopefully there'll be less of gyan and there'll be more of just my experiences and learning as I have sort of spent time being an entrepreneur. Sort of going back to your question, I have a slightly different take on entrepreneurship. I feel that entrepreneurship as a construct has been around for hundreds of, probably thousands of years, right? Which is the reason why mankind and humanity have actually progressed over the years. The new form of entrepreneurship, which is linked to venture capital, which is linked to private equity, is a relatively new construct, right? So we often, and I must sort of admit that both outside of IIT as well as within IIT, the concept of startup or the concept of being an entrepreneur is unfortunately tied to raising venture capital and private equity. But if you look at the world of venture capital and private equity, they've been just around for a meager, 20, 25 years. But entrepreneurship as a construct has been around for thousands of years. So I would just encourage everybody in the audience to decouple venture capital and private equity from the concept of being an entrepreneur. And perhaps some of the biggest entrepreneurs that we can all relate to have never raised a private equity or venture capital as they became entrepreneurs. And some of the biggest sort of industrial names in India in terms of business or even globally that we can recognize have all emerged in eras where there was no venture capital or private equity. My personal journey of wanting to become an entrepreneur perhaps started very early in my life. I come from a family where being in business was always sort of regarded at a premium. It didn't matter whether you were in a small business or a big business. So it has been at the back of my mind that I should do something on my own. And having worked at McKinsey, which I did, so my first job after I graduated from IIT Bombay in 1992, I was lucky to get a scholarship to go to MIT. So I finished my master's in electrical engineering and computer science at MIT in 1994. And when I came back to India, I joined McKinsey as a management consultant. I spent about 5 years there, but the bug of wanting to do something on my own was always at the back of my mind. And in 1999, when it was not very common to leave a very high-paying job with a lot of the benefits of working in a global company like McKinsey, to leave that and then sort of get started on the ground, it was a little bit of a tough decision. But the zeal of wanting to try out something on my own was strong enough. Where I said that perhaps I should do it sooner rather than later. So I quit my job and essentially got started in a space that I knew very little about. And fortunately, through I think getting the timing right and some of the work that we did, we had the decent success in my first company, Transwork. So that bug of wanting to do something on my own has been around for a long time in some ways. Yeah. Back to you, Gaurav.
Yeah, I completely agree with the underlying thought, Rizwan, on how the definition of startups have kind of transformed today. I think when as a country today, when we talk of number of startups, we say we have now 75,000 startups and we have raised around $80 billion as a metric to prove that our startups are being successful. But they need not necessarily be the combined metric through which we or the prism through which we should be looking at the entire ecosystem. I think the several entrepreneurs beyond the celebrated startup community that we talk about, possibly in the tech space, it's a very new theme. I would say it's a space. It's a theme which has evolved in the tech space where funding kind of drives success, and that's been the measure. But you've rightly put how for thousands of years, entrepreneurs in India and abroad have been creating very, very resilient businesses. They need not have raised any funding at all. And I think back home, we have several such examples also. I think, Rizwan, while the metric for success has changed, what has not changed is, even if today as an entrepreneur, I want to make a plunge, the decision to take that leap, while it will be mine, it has to be supported by the family. I'm sure it would have been a equal struggle, or even most equal struggle for you when you were making this transition. How did you go about convincing your family to make this transition, coming from a very, very well-suited profile, very well-suited job that you were at with McKinsey?
So I'm going to give a slightly longish answer to this question because I think it's relevant for the folks on the on this panel to understand. So, we look at risk, okay, and whether at an individual level or the family level, one of the things that really bothers us is if we think we're doing something very risky. And if I put myself, if I go back to 1997, 1998, when I was really thinking of being an entrepreneur, in those days, getting a job at McKinsey was one of the highest paid jobs in the country. Today, you all attribute such jobs to, whether you are sort of in the getting a high-end consulting job or getting a job in these, finance firm who are doing, trading. And, I know, for example, within the IIT context, some of these companies who are, providing opportunities in data science, etc., they pay quite well. So the question is, when you've got a very high job and when you're quitting it to be an entrepreneur, say for a 4 to 5 year period, then there are two ways of evaluating risk. One is to say that, hey, I'm getting such a high paying job. If I continue the job and then potentially my salary today is 100 rupees, it could have become 200 rupees after 5 years. And then there's an opportunity cost, a huge opportunity cost that you miss out if you are being an entrepreneur. The other perception of risk is that, imagine I'm getting a certain job which is paying me 100 rupees today. If 5 years from today, if I am not successful, what is the job that I need to be able to live a certain basic, decent life, in some ways, okay? And imagine one gets convinced that, one really needs, 50 rupees or 75 rupees to live a comfortable life. Then the risk that one is taking is the risk of being able to get a job, not which is going to pay you 200 after 5 years, but can you get a job which is going to pay you 75 after 5 years in some ways, okay? And if you believe, or even a job which may be only paying you 50 rupees, because your cost of living may or may not have become very high. So if you can convince yourself that I'm getting 100 rupees today, but after 5 years, even if I got 50 or 75 rupees, I can actually sustain a basic, decent standard of living, then I don't have to be at 200. The real risk of being an entrepreneur is not whether I can get a job at 200, but really a risk of whether I can get a job at 50 or 75. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is that if one is able to lead a frugal life, in the early days of one's career. So you don't go and, buy a big flat and, do, sign up for a big EMI. You don't go and sign up for a nice fancy car. And then, you're straddled with a personal loan, which you need to repay. And then you get stuck in some ways, right? But you can live a frugal life, especially for people from IIT Bombay. You will realize that the actual risk of being an entrepreneur is actually very little, because there is going to be a huge demand for a good, bright IIT engineer 3 years, 5 years out. As long as you have spent your next 3 to 5 years being an entrepreneur in a productive way, right? You have built capabilities, your venture may not have been successful, but you built enough skills along the way, whether it's in terms of, creating a team, maybe going out and selling your product, maybe going out and raising a certain amount of capital, even if eventually the company did not succeed. If you could work hard over the next 3 to 5 years and build enough skills, I can assure you that it doesn't matter who's on the call right now. Each one of you all is more than capable, and especially with the IIT degree behind you, to be able to get a job which will minimally and probably do it much better than minimally sustain yourself after being an entrepreneur for 3 to 5 years. So the good news for everybody on the call is that because you have this degree from IIT, and obviously the fact that you're from IIT Bombay means, you've kind of gone through a lot of, sort of core exams like the JEE and others, which ensures that you all come pre-built with a certain degree of smarts and knowledge and expertise, and then you're using your time. So interestingly, the real risk of being an entrepreneur is perhaps not as much as it is made out to be by many people. So it is a real opportunity for you all to try your hand at entrepreneurship. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be an entrepreneur immediately after you leave college, right? That's not the point I'm making. You may want to, there may be a space that you may be interested in. You may want to work in that, you may want to work in a big tech firm. You may want to work in a startup firm. You may want to go and do some consulting. You may be very interested in finance. So you may want to join a finance firm for 3 years before you want to try your hand at entrepreneurship. So you can take your time to decide when is it good for you to be an entrepreneur. But in reality, whenever you decide, right, and if you put your mind to it, then the actual risk that you may be taking may be far lower than the perceived risk because of the ability to get a job if the venture, or do something meaningful if the venture is not successful. So I applied the same thinking in those days to convince myself, and then I pretty much used the same logic to convince my family that the real risk that I was taking was perhaps not as much as people may have thought it was. And I must say that in the long run, that logic has kind of panned out quite nicely for me. And, obviously, when one is successful, one can always look back and say, hey, by the way, I did a great thing. But imagine my ventures were not successful. I'm quite confident that I would have found a job that would have more than met my basic cost of living, if I can say that. So I hope, Gaurav, that answer made sense to you. But that's pretty much how I thought about it when I was leaving a very, very highly paid job to be able to get started in a space that I knew very little about. And there was a perception that I was taking a lot of risk at that point.
Yeah, it completely covers with me, Rizwan. Given I quit my job in 2012, I think the basic philosophy and the basic risk measurement that I did on my table was almost very, very similar. Do I have capital to sustain myself in the lifestyle that we are maintaining? And good thing was we did not create a lot of fixed costs on our table. So are we at a place where we can maintain our lifestyle for next 2 years? Given that there's a possibility there will not be a lot of cash flow coming in. And am I going to create as much value for my professional self while trying to create value as an entrepreneur, where in 2 years' time, if I need to go back to the market, I might be slightly more valuable. And when both of these check boxes ticked, it felt like the obvious decision to take. So yeah, I completely agree with your larger point, Rizwan, that coming from IIT, I think a lot of us have that safety net, which it's a jack on our table which we can throw in anytime. It reduces the total risk in our professional journey significantly.
Absolutely, so it's like a insurance policy of sorts, right? Yes. That kind of is in your pocket, and you can use that policy at the right time, so it can be very, very useful there. Yeah.
And Rizwan, as an entrepreneur, I know one thing: every startup, while you are starting up, while you're incubating the idea, while you're starting up, there's a story why you picked up a domain, why you decided to set up at some point of time, or at the point that you decided to set up. What is your story when you started with Transwork? What was the thought going behind it?
So, the overall thinking was the following, right? When you are starting off, when you start in a new area, or when you become an entrepreneur, there are one or two things that should happen. Either you know the domain quite well, and you have figured out an extension to what you may be doing, and then you do a startup which is aligned with that. So, for example, I could be working in the credit card industry for 7 years, and while I'm in the credit card industry, I realized that the way credit card, this is obviously a hypothetical example, the way the rewards program in credit cards are working is not great. And then because I have a 7-year history of working in the space, I know exactly which widget I'm going to build, or what program, a new loyalty program I'm going to come up with. And then I go and do a startup in a space that I've already been affiliated with, right? I could be doing something in marketing, and then I learn a few things about digital marketing. And then I say, hey, by the way, this can be converted into a product because I've done 10 years of marketing. And then I go ahead and, build a widget in digital marketing, and so on and so forth. In my case, I didn't have any of those very specific ideas or thoughts, when I was trying to be an entrepreneur. Whereas on the other side, there was this new class of services that was starting to get introduced in India, where because of the reduction in telecom costs, because of the improvement in global connectivity, Indian companies were, companies out of India were starting to provide global services to their counterparts, which is now called BPO services. And in those days, we called it remote services. The word BPO was not very commonly used. And nobody was doing it. It was just happening in very small pockets by the likes of GE and American Express and their own captive units in India. And I just per chance happened to be on a study where we were looking at some of these types of entities. And we were trying to evaluate, what were the benefits of, doing remote services out of India for global customers and so on and so forth. And it was very intriguing. So without necessarily having a very specific service offering in mind, it just seemed like, hey, this was a fairly virgin area, not too many companies out there. And if we just spent a little bit of time trying to figure this out, then it would potentially become a large space over time, and we could have a play in that space. So when I left McKinsey, I had a broad idea of what I was going to do, but I didn't have a very specific set of solutions or services or a product in mind. And I think the first probably 6-9 months of leaving McKinsey was much more around trying to navigate through and do some more research around it. But fortunately for us, the area that we were looking at, it actually had a lot of potential. And Transworks became one of the first BPO firms out of India. And it became, in a sense, we built a little bit of a competitive advantage because we were sort of first out of the block. So I often tell people that if you have a very specific widget in mind, then go ahead and do it. But if you don't have a very specific idea, then at least make sure that you're in a field where there are not too many companies already doing work in that space, so that you get a little bit of a breather to learn the space, become a little familiar, put your ideas and thoughts together. Often what I see with folks who are trying to become entrepreneurs is that we get enamored by successful companies around us, right? So for example, we may be looking at food delivery, and we look at maybe food delivery is a bad example today because a lot of actions already happened, but there are lots of companies who try and emulate other successful companies as part of their startup, and that is a really difficult thing to do, because when you are trying to get into as a new company, you are trying to get into a space where there are already a bunch of existing companies, then unless you have something really differentiated, it's going to become a really long haul, because whatever you're going to innovate, the companies which have been in the space 3-5 years before you will always have the ability to be able to, they'll have more scale, they'll have more money to be able to innovate faster. So I'll request everybody that, if you're thinking of a business idea, don't necessarily try and emulate companies which are already out there. In fact, if nobody's doing it and you still get convinced that it's a good thing, then perhaps it is indeed a good thing. So trust your gut feel, but don't try and just do something because there are 3-4 other companies that you've heard of who are doing something and they have been successful. Chances are that they may already be a little bit too far for you to catch up from that perspective. Yeah. Back to you, Gaurav.
Yep. Rizwan, it's very funny you brought up food delivery as one of the examples. Incidentally, I was the founder of a food delivery startup before I started Haystack. 2015, I started Hola Chef. Good thing was we were ahead of the curve. It was still an early industry way back in 2015-16. And we were significantly differentiated. Eventually, I ended up moving out of food by selling this company to Ola in 2018. But I completely agree with your thought on how the industry is that you choose and how you try to position yourself. It's going to play a very, very interesting role in the journey that you create. And I think on that experience, Rizwan, would love to know about how you got started with CitiusTech and how did you decide to create it differently from Transwork?
Got it. So I gave you guys a little bit of a background about Transworks and how remote services was a new area and how we started Transworks. Now let me tell you the flip side, the other side of the story. The other side of the story was that the business of remote services, or what is now called BPO, it was a relatively easy business to emulate. So it was easy for other companies, big and small, to start offering these services, because fundamentally the concept of doing remote work out of India is not terribly complicated. And what it did was that what was sort of a completely new industry when we got started, within a 3 to 4 year period, actually there were tons of other companies, probably hundreds of other companies who were trying to do something or the other in the remote services space. And the market over a period of time started becoming quite commoditized. And when you are working in an industry where lots of people can do what you can do, then prices begin to fall. And the margin in the business, or the value creation in the business, starts to get depleted. So we recognize that, and we felt that that company, Transworks, was better managed and run by a company with much larger capital and much larger footprint. So we sold that business to the Aditya Birla Group in 2003. When we were looking for our next venture, there were a few things that we had learned. Okay, the couple of things we had learned is, one, that there is a significant potential in doing a global services business. The second thing that we had learned is that don't do anything which is easy to emulate. Okay, because otherwise tons of people will get into it. And third is that do something which allows you to build a long-term competitive advantage. And on the basis of these three sort of guiding principles, we were looking at what other businesses we could get into. And fortunately for us, we got quite excited about the business of healthcare and healthcare technology, and how, unlike other industries in 2005, the world of healthcare was much further away in technology adoption than, even at that point, industries like, financial services and retail and e-commerce and entertainment and many other industries which had already started to digitize. Healthcare, was not too many people were talking about that, but there was a huge opportunity. So we felt that if we could get into the business of healthcare, then we would get an early mover advantage. 2, it was very large as a market. And 3, it was very complicated there, because, to build enterprise software in healthcare, you have to know a lot more around, the different kinds of diseases and different kind of healthcare data and different kinds of standards and privacy and security. There are many nuances to the business of healthcare, which kind of require more systemic a set of capabilities to be built out. And we felt that that was actually a good thing. What was sort of painful for others, if you became good at that, then we could build a successful business. So on the basis of these sort of premise, we started looking at the healthcare technology market. We ended up hiring a few people who understood the business of digital health or healthcare technology very well. And that, fortunately for us, actually played out very nicely. And over the last, I would say, 20 years, the world globally, digital health has transformed quite a bit. And even today, even if you look at around the world, it's still behind most of the other industries, but it's starting to make progress. And even within India, there is a tremendous opportunity to actually look at digital health in a much more focused manner. And some of you all may know that my foundation has been involved with setting up a center at IIT Bombay in digital health. And we are working very closely with IIT Bombay, but we're also doing many other initiatives, because we believe that digital health is going to be quite transformative for India as well. So those were some of the considerations, Gaurav, based on the learnings that we had at Transworks, which was successful in its own way, but the industry got into trouble even, and therefore CitiusTech was a slightly different take on the same set of guiding principles. But we had learned a few lessons in about 5 years that we had been running Transwork. So we did it in a slightly, I would say, in a slightly more sophisticated manner, if I can call it that, and that played out quite nicely for us.
Amazing. Rizwan, I think you touched upon the point on how you set up a team which helped you scale the business at CitiusTech. I think given the audience that we have, if the group here, they want to start up. I think among several questions and the key decisions that they will have to take is how to set up a team. What is the first team, the core team with which they get started? And then how do they scale? I think given your experience of doing this successfully several times over, even I, as a student, would love to learn from your journey there. How did you pick up the first core team and then scale this to make it into a large enterprise of the kind that you created, Rizwan?
Got it. No, I think it's a great question. I often get asked this question. So you first think of the idea and then you get a team, or first you form a team and then you think of a great idea. Okay. So let me tell you my bias or what I've seen. What I've seen is that if you look around you, and I would encourage everybody in this session to just see many companies that have become very successful. And if you look at these companies that have become very successful, what you'll notice, and this is it's not a hard and fast thing. I'm saying this is more likely what you're going to see. There will always be exceptions because there's so many companies out there. That what you will notice is that the team came together to do something. Then the first one or two things that the team was doing did not kind of work out the way they thought they would. Then they learned a few things and then they pivoted to either an extension of the same idea or something completely different. And then on the second or the third attempt, the team was very successful, and now everybody knows about those organizations, in some ways. Okay. But those organizations are only known for that successful idea. They are not known for the 2-3 failed ideas that for the first year, 2 years the companies were grappling with before they hit upon this idea that made them successful.
Yeah.
You will see less examples of this really bright person, doesn't matter IIT or otherwise, right, who thought of this fabulous idea, then went out and got a great team, and then went out and did whatever, and they became successful. There are less examples of that. So what that tells me when I look around me, and which is also in some ways synonymous with my own personal experience, that once you have a group of, I would say between 2 to 4, anything more is probably too many to align in some ways, right? Between 2 to 4 folks in a small group, and they don't have to be really friends, but they have to be individuals with a common set of values, a common set of a set of passion, but a diverse set of skills. Everybody cannot be this geeky coder guy if you have a 3-member team, right? If all of you guys are just great at this, doing some major AI ML coding, and nobody has expertise in sales and marketing, or nobody wants to do sales and marketing, nobody wants to go out and meet other customers because you guys are all working till 4 in the morning writing geeky code, then probably you don't have the diversity in your team, right? So imagine you are a 3-member team or a 2-member team or a 4-member team, and you all are able to have individuals, one who has a natural affinity for doing this geeky coding, one who has a natural affinity for going out and, sort of meeting customers and meeting people and just being, these are all core personal attributes. It's very hard to change some of these things, it doesn't matter startup or otherwise. And if you all align on what are the kinds of businesses that you guys want to do, or what are the kinds of things that excite you all, and collectively this group thinks of an idea, chances are higher of success than an individual on this panel who will say, what, before I do anything, let me think of the brightest idea first, Because then the chances are that you may wake up every morning agonizing that you've not hit upon your brightest idea, right? Yeah. And then days will go by, weeks will go by, months will go by, and then you'll convince yourself that, what, maybe I'm not smart enough to think of the brightest idea. And then you'll reluctantly go down a path of not becoming an entrepreneur because somewhere down the line, wo kuch idea nahi aaya, right? In some ways. So I encourage people who really want to be entrepreneurs to say, forget the idea for a moment, Just identify 2 other people with diverse skills, but common set of values. So if you believe you are very hardworking, then you really want to partner with 2 other people who are very hardworking. Then you don't want a goofy guy on your team, because then it'll frustrate you, that you're working very hard, that other guy is goofy, okay?
Yeah.
If you believe that you are very ethical, and you should be, please don't partner with somebody who you don't trust as being completely ethical, because then you'll not form the right team, in some ways. Yeah. If you believe that there are certain attributes about you that work well. So just the point I'm broadly making, Gaurav, is that focus on identifying 2-3 people who may have a common set of values, common set of interests, and a common passion for being an entrepreneur. And then you all decide, okay, bhai, see, every Saturday afternoon, instead of goofing around in the hostel, we are going to spend 2 hours whiteboarding business ideas, and each one of us will think of at least one business idea that we can get together every Saturday afternoon for 2 hours, and we can just brainstorm over coffee, right?
Yeah.
Chances are that you'll meet one afternoon, nothing will come out. 2 afternoon, nothing will come out. 2 months will go by, 3 months will go by, but something interesting will come out, which will excite all of you all. And guess what? You guys will have a startup there, right? More likely model of success than a model which is requiring you to be so smart that you'll think of the idea, then so a network that you'll identify 2 other guys to get equally excited, and then make that's less probable scenario. Yeah. So again, I'm hoping it was an important point I was trying to make. I hope I was able to come across and make sense to you guys. But that's my suggestion to anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur. Don't forget about the idea for the moment. Identify the 2-3 people that you want to collaborate with. Yeah.
Yep. It's very well put, Rizwan. I think a different version of this I had heard in another forum. It basically said idea is important, but execution is king. Find a team which will go and execute. We all love to create the product.
But I'm saying something. Yeah, but I'm saying something slightly different, though, Gaurav. I'm not talking about the people talk about having a great strategy but poor execution versus maybe an average strategy but great. You're making that kind of a point. I'm making a slightly different point. I'm saying, does a team come first or the idea come first?
Yeah.
And I'm saying actually more often than not, the team comes before the idea.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Rizwan, you've had the opportunity of also seeing the Indian startup journey. I would say the 0 to 1 of the Indian startup ecosystem. You've actually seen that firsthand. What is your take on the current current startup paradigm that is around us in the country? How is it evolving? What are your thoughts about it?
Oh, I think India is at the cusp of something truly remarkable. And the entrepreneurs that I meet, it doesn't matter whether they're from the IITs or they're from, sort of a bunch of other colleges. I'm just amazed with the maturity and the caliber of the teams and the caliber of the thinking and the confidence and the ability to execute and the speed of execution. It has just been tremendous. Yeah. And gives me a lot of hope that, for some, I often tell people that some of the toughest problems in India are not going to be solved by the largest conglomerates in business houses in India. They're actually going to be solved by folks who are the young, bright kids who are graduating from colleges today, who have the ability and the passion. In fact, if I can take an extra 2 minutes on this question, the rationale for setting up a center for digital health at IIT Bombay is essentially driven by that same belief. Yeah. That what I've seen is that young students who may be interested in doing something creative, want to do something new, maybe even want to become entrepreneurs, they get excited by problems that they can see in front of them. So today, a lot of startups in the fintech space, a lot of startups in the e-commerce space, in food delivery, again, are all easy for students and students of IIT Bombay and students everywhere, right, to empathize with, because they experience banking, they experience e-commerce, they experience travel, they experience entertainment. Most students don't experience healthcare as much, because when you're 20, 21, 22, you're in probably the healthiest phase of your life, except some exceptions. More often than not, students don't understand some of the real world problems in healthcare. And the center at IIT Bombay that we have set up essentially is our way of bringing real world healthcare problems, opportunities, whatever you want to call it, into the IIT campus for faculty and students to start working on those situations, right? So we have partnerships with hospitals, we have partnership with health insurance companies, we have partnership with healthcare technology companies, and some of the projects that the Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay are working are actually real world problems in healthcare. And I often tell folks that, the business of digital health and healthcare is going to go through a transformation in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's going to be a huge opportunity that is going to be there for doing new things, doing research, doing academia, doing entrepreneurship in the healthcare space, and especially digital health space. And if we can get enough young students excited about this, then they will come up with all kinds of amazing solutions, which are going to be revolutionizing different areas of healthcare. It could be different disease conditions, it could be patient engagement, consumer engagement, fitness, what have you. So I have a very, very high degree of optimism in the competency of, I think India is breeding a very smart and competent set of entrepreneurs at this point of time, Gaurav.
Completely agree with you, Rizwan. And I see that digital health is very close to your heart, given the work that you have done at CitiusTech and beyond it by giving it back to the society with the Koita Center of Digital Excellence that you have set up at IIT Bombay. Rizwan, you have touched upon several aspects of what are the opportunities with the Koita Center of Digital Health. Is this also a place where students can actually come up with their own ideas in digital health and take it forward and possibly seek support from the center, and they will be supported in that journey?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the core objectives, even if you see the website of our Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay, you'll see that there is a very significant focus on getting students to work on real world. How does entrepreneurship happen, right? Entrepreneurship happens when one comes up with an idea to solve a real world business situation. Right, it's taking too long and it's too cumbersome for me to get a cab. And then there is Ola, because Ola makes it easy to get a cab. It's very difficult for me to book a ticket. In the good old days when Book My Show was not there, you had to actually go and stand in front of cinema halls to buy a ticket. And you would have to go many days in advance if you wanted to make sure that for a popular show, you got a ticket on a Saturday or a Sunday. And Book My Show solved that problem. So every time you want to become an entrepreneur, you're actually helping solve a real world problem and doing it in a faster, better, cheaper way. And the only way you can do that is when you have a very deep appreciation of what the real world problem is, right? So what we're trying to do in our Center for Digital Health is actually make sure that every student who is affiliated with the Center for Digital Health gets an opportunity to work directly with doctors, with hospitals, with researchers on real world healthcare situations. And once you have the entrepreneurial bug in your mind, and when you're solving a particular situation or you're getting involved with a certain context, you'll be looking around you and say, hey, by the way, what are the kinds of problems that I'm seeing around me, either the one that I'm solving or what's happening in the hospital context or what's happening in the healthcare context that I get excited about, where if I had a better widget or a better solution to be able to solve for that, then that will be very valuable to a customer. A customer could be a doctor, it could be a patient, it could be a hospital, it could be whatever, right? So that is the genesis of what we are trying to do right now. And that's the so the simple answer is yes, that it is a very, very important part of what our objective in the center is. Yeah.
Amazing. I think healthcare in general, in the health tech space, generally has been considered as a difficult space to get started in, mostly because of inertia in the entire ecosystem, and also access to the larger ecosystem. If let's say, if engineers like us are trying to get into it, I think this will be a phenomenal opportunity. Rizwan, again, you've also seen the health tech health tech.
Can I just comment on your last statement here, Gaurav?
Please, Rizwan.
I think if I were 22 years old, right, I have all the time to solve the more difficult problems. Just remember, the more you have to strive for to do something, the chances are that there are going to be less people in the fray because it is inherently a difficult thing to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you are 22 years old, the one additional thing you have on your side is time. Okay. So don't be in a rush. As long as it's a problem that excites you, and if it's something that you feel a certain degree of commitment and focus towards, just go for it. Even if it's not today the most exciting problem, or nobody else is talking about it. If nobody else is talking about it because nobody else, in a sense, thinks they can solve it, or nobody appreciates the problem, that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a long time before other people will start to follow your path, right? So I would look at situations like these, Gaurav, and feel even more excited, rather than feeling less if I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Because easy stuff gets done and copied very quickly. It's the hard stuff that takes time, and if needs really bright people to solve it. And I feel that people on this panel who are hearing us are probably really bright people. So they should look for tougher things to do. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I meant exactly the same thing. And what I was going to say was end the thought on now for students, specifically the ones who are in the session, they know a place where if they have an idea on health tech, they will be able to find a very, very early partner in that journey with
Sure.
the initiative that you have taken. And thank you for that. Rizwan, this trend that we have seen, I'm just doing a quick time check. How much time do we have, guys?
Sir, we have 4 to 5 minutes.
So, Rizwan, I think we have seen a phenomenal amount of our transition in the health tech. I think Indian government itself is taking a huge leap forward with the Ayushman Bharat mission, the concept of health ID. I think it's something that you have conceptualized at a different level yourself, and now you're seeing it becoming a reality. What are the opportunities that you see are going to open up for the healthcare entrepreneurs in days to come because of this transition that India might be making in the next 3 to 4 years with the Ayushman Bharat mission, the entire health ID concept that we're now taking to the market?
Sure. So, I will, let me give a parallel example. Imagine somebody wanted to get into the financial services industry. You wanted to start a fintech company, and nobody in the world had bank accounts. It would be very difficult to start a fintech industry, right?
Yep.
But imagine banking just became digital and banks started offering digital bank accounts. Then one could make a case that with that foundation, now that people's money is in digital format in a bank, the entire evolution of the fintech industry happened because bank accounts got created. If you didn't have a digital bank account, then you could not start the fintech industry. So in any form, fashion, the fact that you have money lying in a digital format in your bank account enabled the creation. It could be whatever, it could be, e-commerce, it could be, point-to-point, sort of payment transfers, UPI, all of that is possible because you have money which is digitally available in your bank account.
Yeah.
With what the government is trying to do with the Ayushman Bharat digital mission and all the efforts around digital health is enabling consumers and patients to put their health data into the health account. So now the question is, what is the opportunity? Right? And you can draw a parallel with the fintech space. I say, hey, by the way, all these things happened in financial services because a bank account got created. So now the question is, what are all the things that are going to get created in digital health because a health account got created? And the number of use cases or number of opportunities are kind of, in principle, they're limitless. Now, that doesn't mean they're easy. That doesn't mean they will start quickly, but it means that eventually it will happen. It could be around, how to engage better with patients, what kind of data or what kind of information is available to doctors for better care. It could mean how do you move data around from between patients and hospitals and doctors? What kind of networks can you create to be able to analyze health data to do more cost optimization? It could mean how do you take all the data from different kinds of places and start to predict how diseases are evolving? How can you take data from everywhere to be able to predict when the next epidemic is going to happen? How do you start to look at data and genomic information of one person and their data to say how can personalized medicines become better? It's an ocean of opportunities that will open up. Each of these opportunities has space for tens of entrepreneurs, probably hundreds of entrepreneurs, right? But to caution everybody, each of this will take time. Each of them will be painstaking, but there will be lots of money to be made at the end of that journey in some ways, and opportunities to create very successful companies. Yeah. So as you hopefully what came across in this answer was just my sheer belief and my sheer level of excitement and enthusiasm of what is ahead. And it's a tremendous opportunity for bright students graduating from the college today. Now, if you fundamentally don't like healthcare, then please don't do it, because there are lots of other areas you can become entrepreneurs, right? But if you do believe that you have a certain affinity towards healthcare, then don't go and join an e-commerce company as a product manager. Then spend time in healthcare. Then don't go and join a consulting opportunity just because it's paying you 3 lakhs, 5 lakh rupees salary more. Spend time in healthcare, If you fundamentally don't like healthcare, please don't do healthcare, because there are lots of other areas that you should be working on, right, in some way. So that would be my response to that comment of yours, Gaurav.
Yeah, and I again, this so coheres with the general view that has evolved in the fintech industry. I think 2014, 12, 13, 14 onwards, then the entire effort of inclusion, financial inclusion was built up, and a lot of bank accounts were opened. In 2017, 18 saw the start of the wave of which kind of led to a significant amount of maturity and fund availability, and hence a lot of new companies that have come up in the financial space. Given the efforts of the government, I think the similar kind of data availability will be there now in the healthcare space. And I think with that data availability, Rizwan, just to build up on your thought, a lot of inefficiencies will be identified. More than efficiencies, a lot of inefficiencies will be identified. What we have not known will be slightly better known to us. And each of those inefficiencies are going to become a phenomenal opportunity for an entrepreneur to create a tremendous amount of value. Genomics is something that genomics and personalized therapy is something that Haystack, as my company, has already started building towards. We completely believe we've focused on infectious, and now we have actually moved into chronic health. We believe that the genetic data and the personalized therapy is a phenomenal opportunity. And with the direction the government has taken, I think this is going to become a reality, and India might be a leader in personalized therapy, unifying healthcare access at several levels, and removing so many inefficiencies around the therapy and the diagnostic protocol that are currently there in the healthcare ecosystem. Thank you for that response, Rizwan. I think we are short on time. I think I'll just put a very open question to you. Your guru mantra for all of the starting entrepreneurs who are sitting in this forum, possibly other entrepreneurs who might be listening to you, given the time and date where we are, how should they be building up their journey? Where do they get started? I know it's a slightly bland question given what we have already discussed, but yeah,
I think I already answered this question. The broad areas, right? So a couple of things, right? One is India has never had a better opportunity sort of has never been a better position for the students graduating from IIT Bombay to become entrepreneurs. Lots of opportunity out there. Two, don't be rushed. Take your own time to decide what space interests you, what kind of opportunities interest you, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. It could happen coming out of IIT. It could happen 2 years after IIT. It could happen 4 years after IIT. So it's not, life is not, it's not a 100-meter sprint. It's a very long marathon, perhaps multiple marathons. So you have the time. So don't feel that there is a pressure, because chances are that if you put too much pressure on yourself to do anything in life, probably not the best idea. Number three, when you do have some broad idea about, the timing and the space, go and identify maybe one or two other individuals who share the same level of passion for that space, or a certain, area that may be of interest to you and have a certain alignment. And just give it a shot. Be patient with what you're doing. Nothing happens quickly. Life is about, building anything sustainable that you build will probably take 5 to 10 years. So it's not something that, you need to go out in 3 months, you need to raise private venture capital, another 2 years, you want to go and get private equity. Don't go with that mindset. Go with the mindset and say, hey, you know what? I want to build something of value, something that I can look back and feel with a sense of pride of what I have done. And it will take 5 to 10 years to do something of any meaning. So that's the kind of commitment that I'm going to give. It doesn't mean that after 2 years, if things are just not working out, you cannot pivot or you can't do other stuff, but you're giving every idea time to mature and time to, sort of take forward. And, if all these things happen and, you are focused in what you're doing, then there's a very high chance of success. Nothing is guaranteed. That's what makes entrepreneurship fun. But I think there's no better cohort of people than the students of IIT Bombay to give it a shot, especially because of the insurance policy that each one of you all carry in your pocket of the IIT Bombay degree. So on that happy note, I'm going to pass it back to you, Gaurav. And thank you very much, everyone, for the session today. It was fun. And Gaurav, you did a tremendous job of, the Q&A session. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully the team out there took something from this conversation as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Rizwan sir, for your time. I think all the credit goes to the young team at Entrepreneurship Club. It's a phenomenal platform that they have been able to create over the years, and I see that this is going to continuously create a lot of value for young budding entrepreneurs and engineers in campus. There are a few questions that have come in the Q&A forum. I would recommend the Entrepreneurship Club to possibly pick the right ones and share with Rizwan sir over email, and or if they think this is the place where that these can be answered. And I think beyond that, thanks a lot again, Rizwan sir. I'm privileged to have the opportunity of bringing some of these questions on behalf of the forum to you and listening to all of your candidates' responses. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Yeah. Good night. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the students on a Sunday evening, finding the time for that. And we are always thankful for your continuous contribution to IIT Bombay. So thank you once again. And thank you, Gaurav sir, for helping us moderate this session.
Pleasure is all mine, Marshi. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Have a break for around 5 minutes and we'll begin the next session in the next 5 minutes.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yeah, Sukanya ma'am, you are audible.
Yeah.
So we can start in 2 minutes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm unable to start my video. If you want me to start my video, it's okay. Otherwise, I can do it without video as well.
Ma'am, now you can share your video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.